The burning starts before you even fall asleep. You lie down, the room is dark, and your feet begin. A slow heat that builds from the soles up. By 10:30, it is uncomfortable. By midnight, it is the only thing you can think about. You've tried elevating them, you've tried cooling them, you've tried ignoring them. None of it changes what is happening underneath the skin. I'm 83 years old. I lived with that burning for longer than I should have before I understood what was causing it. Not the surface of it, not nerve damage from diabetes, which is what I'd been told, but the actual mechanism. The specific chain of events running inside my feet every night that produced that heat. Because once I understood the chain, I stopped treating the symptom and started addressing two links in that chain that nobody had ever pointed me toward. There's one thing I drink every evening before bed. Small glass, takes 30 seconds. I've done it every night for nearly 2 years. The burning that used to own my nights is not what it was. It doesn't build the same way. It doesn't last as long. And on the nights I understand best, the nights after I have slept deeply and woken with my feet quiet, I know exactly why it worked. Your doctor has not mentioned this to you. I want to be clear about why. Not because it isn't real, not because the research doesn't exist, but because your appointment is not built for this conversation. There are 15 patients waiting. There is a prescription to renew. The mechanism behind why certain foods change what your peripheral nerves experience overnight requires more than the system allows. That is not a conspiracy. That is just the reality of how medicine gets delivered. I'm going to give you what the appointment couldn't. Before I do, if your feet burn at night, if the heat builds after you lie down and won't let you sleep, drop the word burning in the comments right now. Just that one word. Tell me what time it starts. I read every single comment and I want to know where people are. Here's what's happening. Not one process, two, running simultaneously. And the reason the burning is so hard to address is that most people, and most treatments, only address one of them. The first process you may have heard described before, though probably not in this much detail. When blood sugar stays elevated for years, glucose binds to proteins in the walls of your smallest blood vessels, your microvessels, in a process called glycation. The resulting compounds accumulate, narrowing those vessels, reducing the blood flow that your peripheral nerves depend on. Research has consistently linked this microvessel compromise to the nerve damage that produces burning and tingling in the feet of people with long-term high blood sugar. Less circulation, less oxygen. Nerves that are chronically underfed begin to misfire. At night, when your body is still, those misfires produce the heat you feel building from your soles upward. That is the process most people know about, at least in outline. Manage the blood sugar, protect the vessels, slow the damage. What almost nobody explains is the second process, the one that determines how loudly those damaged nerves actually scream at midnight. Inflammation. Specifically, inflammatory signaling in the peripheral nerve tissue itself. Research has observed that in people with diabetic neuropathy, levels of pro-inflammatory compounds, cytokines, are elevated in and around the affected nerve fibers. Those cytokines do not cause the nerve damage, but they amplify the signal from nerves that are already compromised. Think of it this way. The glycation process damaged the nerve. The inflammatory environment turned up the volume on the signal that damaged nerve is sending. The burning you feel is not just structural damage. It is structural damage with an inflammatory amplifier running on top of it. And that amplifier runs hardest overnight, when your body's anti-inflammatory defenses are at their lowest, and when a third factor enters the picture. That third factor is your overnight cortisol pattern. In the early morning hours, cortisol begins rising to prepare your body for waking. In a body with insulin resistance, that cortisol rise triggers your liver to release stored glucose into your bloodstream before you have eaten a single thing. Blood sugar climbs while you sleep, and elevated overnight blood sugar feeds both the glycation process in your vessel walls and the inflammatory environment around your nerve fibers, simultaneously while you lie there unable to do anything about it. The burning that peaks at 2 in the morning is partly the result of a blood sugar and inflammation surge that your body generates on its own while you sleep, unless you give it a reason not to. That is what the research behind what I drink every evening is actually about. And that is why your doctor has never connected it to your feet, because the connection runs through sleep quality, cortisol timing, and inflammatory cytokines, and that is not a conversation that fits in 8 minutes. If your feet burn at night, or go numb, or feel cold no matter how many socks you wear, please don't ignore it. I almost did, and I'm 80 years old. For years I told myself it was just age, the tingling, the heaviness in my legs climbing the stairs. But it wasn't age. It was my blood sugar quietly damaging the nerves and the circulation in my legs, and almost nobody warned me in time. If you let it keep going, those little signals turn into something you can't undo. I wasn't willing to lose my feet or my independence. So I started doing one thing every single day to help support healthy blood sugar and protect my legs. I'll show you exactly what in this video. And if you want the simple support I personally use, there's a free presentation linked in the description below. What I drink before bed is tart cherry juice, 4 ounces. The unsweetened kind, not the sweetened cocktail version, the pure Montmorency tart cherry juice. Every evening about 30 minutes before sleep. I want to be precise about the 2 mechanisms because its anti-inflammatory is not enough. Tart cherries, specifically Montmorency cherries, are among the most concentrated dietary sources of anthocyanins. These are the compounds that give the fruit its deep red color and that researchers have studied extensively for their effect on inflammatory markers in the body. Studies have observed that regular tart cherry consumption is associated with meaningful reductions in circulating pro-inflammatory cytokines, including the same compounds that research has linked to amplified nerve pain signals in peripheral neuropathy. The inflammatory amplifier running on top of your nerve damage does not need to run at full volume. Anthocyanins, consumed consistently, are associated in research with turning that volume down. That is the first mechanism. The second is what tart cherries do to sleep, and what sleep does to your overnight blood sugar. Tart cherries are one of the few whole foods with a naturally significant melatonin content. Research has observed that regular consumption of tart cherry juice is associated with elevated melatonin levels and measurable improvements in sleep quality and duration. Deeper sleep means a more controlled cortisol curve. A more controlled cortisol curve means a smaller overnight glucose release from your liver. And a smaller overnight glucose release means the inflammatory and glycation processes in your peripheral nerve tissue face a less hostile environment through the hours when they would otherwise run unchecked. 4 ounces, 2 mechanisms, one addressing the inflammatory amplifier on your nerve signals directly, one addressing the overnight hormonal pattern that fuels it. Consumed 30 minutes before sleep so that the melatonin effect has time to support the transition into deep, slow-wave sleep before the cortisol window opens. The unsweetened version matters. I want to be direct about that. The sweetened tart cherry cocktail sold in most grocery stores has added sugar that works directly against the blood sugar mechanism I just described. You want pure tart cherry juice, no added sugar. Lakewood Organic and R.W. Knudsen both make it. Most health food stores carry it. A bottle costs around $8 to $10 and lasts about a week at 4 ounces per night. Talk to your doctor before adding it to your routine, particularly if you are on blood thinners. Tart cherry has mild antiplatelet properties, and that conversation is worth having. A man wrote to me not long ago, 79 years old, 21 years diabetic, burning feet every night from about 10 until 3 in the morning. He'd been managing it with gabapentin for years. It dulled the pain but left him foggy every morning, and he hated it. Nobody had ever asked about his sleep quality. Nobody had connected the overnight cortisol pattern to what his feet were doing at midnight. When he started addressing the evening window deliberately, the tart cherry, dietary changes, consistent sleep timing, the pattern shifted. Not in a week, over months. The burning didn't disappear, but it stopped peaking the way it had. The nights got quieter. I share that not as a guarantee, but as a pattern I have heard described more times than I can count. If you made it this far, you already understand more about your own legs than most people your age ever will. That matters. You know now that the burning, the numbness, the cold feet, they trace back to one thing: blood sugar slowly working against your nerves and circulation. And you know the goal isn't a miracle. It's protecting your ability to stand, to walk, to stay independent. That's why, alongside everything I showed you today, I use a simple daily support to help keep my blood sugar in a healthy range, so my legs keep carrying me where I want to go. I put the free presentation in the description below. Go watch it. And as always, keep working with your doctor. This supports your routine. It doesn't replace it. Burning in your feet at midnight is not random, and it is not simply the price of getting older with diabetes. It is two specific processes: microvessel compromise feeding damaged nerve signals, and an inflammatory and hormonal environment amplifying those signals overnight, running in a body that has not been given the right tools to quiet them. Those tools exist. They are not expensive, they are not heroic. They require understanding the mechanism and then addressing it consistently, every evening, alongside your doctor's plan. If you choose to take that seriously, the link below covers a natural blood sugar support option designed to work with your treatment, not replace it. Look at it. Bring it to your next appointment. One conversation with your doctor is all it takes to find out if it applies to you. And drop "burning" in the comments. Tell me what time it starts. Tell me which foot. Tell me how long this has been going on. I read every single one. Your feet are not broken. The environment they are living in overnight has not been working in their favor. Now you know what to change.